Part 2. Before we begin, if you made it here from Part 1, you already know this story is intense. Part 2 is the finale, and trust me, the twists are coming. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on, because you do not want to miss the ending. Now, let's get into it. Chapter 1. The Pop Queen. Time slowed, and Jae-sun's world stopped. Because the face beneath Nova's mask was the face of Zita Coleman, the nobody backup dancer. The woman he'd called a satiating. The woman he'd destroyed on national television. "My name is Zita Coleman," she said, her voice ringing through the arena without the modulator now. "And I am Nova." The crowd exploded. 80,000 voices screaming as one. Lightsticks waving frantically, creating a sea of purple and gold that stretched to the rafters. The sound was so loud it felt like a physical force, pressing against Jae-sun's chest, making it impossible to breathe. The floor beneath his feet vibrated with the collective hysteria of fans who had waited 3 years for this moment. Hana's grip on his arm turned painful, her perfectly manicured nails digging into his skin like claws, drawing blood he couldn't feel. Her voice was barely audible over the chaos, pitched high with disbelief and the first edges of terror. "That's impossible. That backup dancer is Nova? No. But Jae-sun couldn't hear her or see her. His mind was fully focused only on the woman on stage, the woman he'd loved and lost and never truly known. The woman who was looking directly at him now, her expression cold and triumphant. For 3 years, he'd held her in his arms, kissed her lips, whispered promises in the darkness of his penthouse, and he'd never known. She'd been the biggest star in Asia the entire time, and she'd chosen to be just Zita with him. Just a woman in love with a man. And he'd thrown her away like she was nothing. "To everyone who ever made me feel like I didn't belong," Zita said into the microphone, her eyes never leaving Jae-sun's face even though 50 million people were watching around the world. "Thank you. You taught me exactly who I needed to become." She smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Now watch me." The opening notes of her next song began to play, a song the world knew, a song about betrayal and heartbreak and rising from the ashes. But now, for the first time, everyone understood what it really meant. Zita began to sing, and every word was a weapon aimed directly at the man in the front row. Her voice soared through the arena, powerful and haunting, filled with a pain that resonated with everyone who had ever been made to feel small by someone they loved. The crowd sang along, their voices joining hers in a chorus of vindication. They didn't know they were watching the destruction of a man in real time. They thought it was just a performance. Jae-sun knew better. Every word was for him. Every note was a reminder of what he'd lost. And he deserved all of it. Hana's face had gone completely white, the color draining away like water from a broken vessel. Her grip on Jae-sun's arm had turned into claws, her nails breaking skin now, but he barely felt it. He was numb, floating somewhere outside his body, watching his entire world collapse from a distance. That's impossible," Hana whispered again, as if saying it enough times would make it true. "That backup dancer is Nova? No. She can't be. But the evidence was undeniable. The face on that stage, confident, radiant, and powerful, was the same face Hana had humiliated for 3 years. The same face she'd called ugly, untalented, and unworthy. The same face she'd spat insults at while making her fetch coffee and sort costumes in the cramped backstage closet. Zita had outsold Hana's entire discography with a single album. Zita had won awards Hana could only dream of. Zita was, and always had been, everything Hana pretended to be. And now 80 million people knows about it. Hana's mind raced through every cruel thing she'd ever said. Every public humiliation. Every time she'd called Zita worthless, ugly, a charity case who didn't belong in Korea. The way she'd made Zita clean the practice room floors while the other dancers watched and laughed. The Instagram stories mocking her hair, her skin, her accent, and her dreams. The internet would find those moments. Within hours, every video, every behind-the-scenes clip, every witness account would surface. The whole world would see exactly how Shin Hana had treated the biggest star in Asia. She was ruined. She was absolutely, completely ruined. And she hadn't even seen it coming. The concert continued for another hour, but Jae-sun didn't hear any of it. He sat frozen in his seat, watching Zita command the stage with an ease and power he'd never seen before. This wasn't the woman who had curled up against his chest and whispered about her fears of never being accepted. This wasn't the woman who had cried in his arms about not belonging, about feeling invisible in a world that seemed designed to overlook her. This was someone else entirely. This was Nova. And Nova was untouchable. The cameras found him periodically. He could see his own shocked face on the massive screens flanking the stage. Could see the hashtags forming in real time on the social media feeds displayed around the arena. Hashtag NOVA revealed. Hashtag Zita is NOVA. Hashtag the backup dancer was the queen. Hashtag Jae-sun in shambles. Hashtag Hannah's over party. He deserved every single one. When the concert finally ended, when the last note faded and Zita stood center stage receiving a standing ovation that lasted 7 full minutes, she looked directly at him one more time. There was so much in that look: anger, triumph, and pain. And underneath it all, something that looked almost like grief. As if she'd been hoping, even now, that he would have been different. That he would have fought for her. That he would have proven himself worthy of the secret she'd kept for so long. He hadn't. And they both knew it. Jae-sun fought through the crowds backstage, desperate to reach her. His heart pounded against his ribs as he pushed past security guards and industry people who recognized him and tried to stop him for conversation. He ignored them all. Security guards blocked every entrance to the artist area, their expressions impassive as he begged. "Please. I need to see her. Just for 5 minutes. Please." His voice cracked with desperation he couldn't hide. "Miss Coleman is not receiving visitors. Tell her it's Jae-sun. Tell her I need to explain." "Sir." The guard's voice was firm but not unkind. She specifically said no exceptions. "I'm sorry." Through a window, Jae-sun could see into her dressing room. She was surrounded by people, stylists and managers and CEO Park, all of them celebrating with champagne and tears of joy. This was the moment they'd waited 3 years for. The biggest reveal in K-pop history, executed perfectly. As if sensing his gaze, Zita looked up. Their eyes met through the glass. For one moment, just one, he saw the woman he'd loved. The woman who had laughed at his jokes and traced patterns on his skin and whispered "I love you" in the darkness when the world couldn't see them. Then her expression hardened into something cold and unfamiliar. She turned her back deliberately, returning to her celebration, dismissing him as thoroughly as he had once dismissed her on national television. "Sir." The security guard's hand was on his arm now. "I need to escort you out." Jae-sun let himself be led away, his legs moving mechanically while his mind screamed. He'd never felt so alone in his entire life. Hana didn't make it to her car before the panic attack hit. She collapsed in a private hallway, her back against the wall, her designer dress bunching beneath her as she slid to the floor. Her breathing came in sharp, painful gasps that tore at her throat. Her vision blurred with tears she couldn't control. Her phone was already exploding with notifications. She could see the headlines forming without even looking. Shin HNA bullied Nova. For 3 years. Videos surface of Hana humiliating secret superstar. The coffee incident. Watch Hana destroy her own career. Hana's cruel treatment of Nova goes viral. Someone had already found the footage from 3 months ago, Hana throwing a cup of cold coffee at Zita and screaming at her in front of the entire backup dancer team. At the time, it had been just another Tuesday. Another opportunity to remind the foreign girl that she didn't belong. Now it is the most watched video in Korea, with over 50 million views and climbing. Her career was over. Her reputation was destroyed. Everything she'd worked for, everything she'd built, everything she'd sacrificed, gone in a single moment of revelation. With shaking hands, she dialed her father's number. "Daddy." Her voice cracked. "Daddy, you have to fix this. My career is over. You have to." "I know." Her father's voice was strange. Cold. Almost frightened. "I've been watching." "Then do something. Use your connections." Pay someone off. You always. Hana. He cut her off sharply. I warned you. I warned you to stay away from that girl. I told you not to make her an enemy. What? When did you ever? Years ago. When you first started targeting her. I told you to leave her alone. Hana's mind scrambled through her memories. He had said something, hadn't he? Something cryptic about not making enemies of people she didn't understand. She'd ignored him, too focused on her jealousy to listen, too convinced of her own superiority to consider that the backup dancer might be anyone important. Why? She demanded. Why did you care about some backup dancer? Her father was quiet for a long moment. Stay quiet, he finally said. Don't say anything to anyone. Don't post anything. Don't try to defend yourself. I'll handle what I can, but Hana, his voice dropped lower. This is bigger than your career. Do you understand me? This is bigger than anything you know. Daddy, what are you talking about? What? He hung up. Hana stared at her phone, her panic attack morphing into something else entirely. Fear. What did her father know about Zita Coleman that she didn't? In her dressing room, surrounded by celebration, Zita accepted a glass of champagne she didn't intend to drink. You were magnificent, CEO Park said, his eyes bright with something that looked almost like paternal pride. Your mother would have been so proud. She would have been cheering louder than anyone in that arena. The mention of her mother sent a pang through Zita's chest, but she kept her composure. Tonight wasn't about grief. Tonight was about victory. Thank you, she said. For everything. For believing in me when no one else did. For keeping my secret all these years. Believing was the easy part. CEO Park smiled warmly. You did all the hard work. 3 years of hiding in plain sight, of watching people disrespect you while knowing you could destroy them with a single truth. That takes strength most people don't have. A knock at the door interrupted them. One of her assistants poked her head in, looking flustered. Miss Coleman? There's a Daniel Kwon here to see you. CEO of Apex Entertainment. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. Zita frowned. She knew the name. Apex was Stellar's biggest rival, the company that had been steadily eating into their market share for the past 5 years, but she'd never met the man personally. What does he want? He says he wants to offer his congratulations. And the assistant hesitated. He says you'll want to hear what he has to say. Zita glanced at CEO Park, who shrugged slightly. Apex is legitimate. Daniel Kwon built it from nothing, self-made billionaire by 30. If he's here, he has a reason. Send him in. The man who entered was not what Zita expected. He was tall, over 6 feet, with an athletic build and the easy confidence of someone used to commanding rooms. His skin was a rich brown, warm and glowing under the dressing room lights, almost the same shade as her own. His features were striking, high cheekbones, full lips, eyes that seemed to hold both warmth and secrets. His hair was black and curly, kept short and professional, and his suit probably cost more than most people's cars. He was, Zita realized, one of the most handsome men she'd ever seen. And he was looking at her like she was the only person in the room. Miss Coleman. His voice was smooth, carrying a slight American accent beneath the Korean. Or should I say Nova? I'm Daniel Kwon. I know who you are. Zita remained guarded despite his charm. If you're here to poach me for Apex, I'm not interested. Daniel laughed, a warm, genuine sound that filled the room. I'm not here to poach you. I'm here to congratulate you. He stepped closer, his expression shifting to something more serious. And to offer you something better than a contract. Which is a friend. He gestured to his own face, his own brown skin. Someone who understands what it's like to be underestimated because of how you look. Someone who knows what it means to work twice as hard and get half the credit in an industry that wasn't built for people like us. Zita felt something shift in her chest. It had been so long since someone had acknowledged that particular struggle. In her world of hiding, of being Nova behind a mask and Zita in the shadows, she'd almost forgotten what it felt like to be seen in that way. The industry isn't kind to people like us, Daniel continued. But tonight, you proved them all wrong. You stood on that stage and showed 80 million people that they were fools to overlook you. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. I wanted to shake the hand of the woman who did that. He extended his hand. Zita hesitated, then took it. His grip was warm and firm, his palm slightly calloused like someone who wasn't afraid of hard work despite his wealth. "If you ever need anything," he said, pressing a business card into her hand, "anything at all, I'm here. No strings attached." He released her hand and turned to leave. At the door, he paused. "Oh, and Miss Coleman?" He looked back over his shoulder, his expression unreadable. "Be careful who you trust in the coming weeks. Not everyone who offers you friendship has your best interests at heart." Then he was gone. Zita stared at the door, then at the card in her hand. "The reveal just happened and I am shaking. Zita is Nova. Hana is finished. And who is this mysterious Daniel Kwon?" Eyes type Nova Queen in the comments. Like this video if your jaw is on the floor right now. We're just getting started. The morning after the reveal, Zita woke to a new world. Her phone showed 1K unread messages. Her social media followers had increased by 20 million overnight. Every news outlet on the planet was running her face on their front page, some she'd never even heard of, media organizations from countries she'd never visited, all suddenly desperate to tell her story. Nova Unmasked, the backup dancer who fooled the world. From nobody to superstar, the incredible true story of Zita Coleman. K-pop's biggest secret, how one woman hid in plain sight. And alongside her rise, Hana's spectacular fall. Shin Hana, the bully who picked the wrong target. Career in ruins, Hana's history of abuse exposed. The coffee video has been viewed 200 million times. Former backup dancers come forward, Hana's pattern of cruelty. Zita watched the numbers climb with grim satisfaction. Every view of Hana's cruelty was vindication. Every comment calling out her abuse was justice. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough for what Hana had really done. Because Zita knew something the public didn't. Something that CEO Park had shown her 2 days before the reveal. Something that transformed Hana from a workplace bully into something far, far worse. Her mother's murderer. Zita pushed the thought aside. There would be time for that later. For now, she had a press conference to attend. The room was packed with journalists from every major outlet in the world. Cameras flashed continuously as Zita took her seat at the podium, flanked by CEO Park and her newly assembled PR team. She looked stunning, a deliberate choice. A cream-colored designer suit that made her brown skin glow like burnished gold. Her natural curls styled to perfection, cascading over her shoulders. Minimal makeup that highlighted her features rather than hiding them. She looked like what she was, a queen claiming her throne. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady and clear. "I know you have questions. I'll answer what I can." The first reporter jumped in immediately. "Miss Coleman, how does it feel to have been a backup dancer while secretly being the biggest star in Asia?" Zita smiled slightly. "I was never just a backup dancer. I was a woman who chose to see how people treated others when they thought no one important was watching." She paused, letting that sink in. "I learned exactly who people really are when they believe they have power over someone they consider beneath them." "Are you referring to anyone specifically?" "I think the videos circulating online speak for themselves." The room buzzed with murmurs. Another reporter stood. "What about the allegations made at the press conference 3 weeks ago? That you were assassin stalking Kong Jae-sun? That you fabricated evidence of a relationship?" Zita's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "I have lawyers who are currently reviewing those statements for defamation. The people who spread those lies will be hearing from them shortly." She leaned slightly toward the microphone. "But I'll say this once, for the record, I am not and have never been assassin. The truth about my relationship with Mr. Kang is my own business. What is public business is that I was slandered on national television by people who should have known better." "Can you comment on?" "Next question." The reporter sat down, chastened. For an hour, Zita fielded questions with grace and steel. She was charming when she needed to be, cutting when the situation demanded it, and always completely in control. By the time it was over, there wasn't a person in that room who doubted her power. That afternoon, Hana launched her counterattack. It was desperate and clumsy. The move of someone who had never faced real opposition before and didn't know how to handle it. Anonymous sources planted a story in 3 different outlets simultaneously. Nova identity created by company, Zita Coleman, just a face for the brand. The story claimed that Nova had been a manufactured persona all along, voice manipulation, ghostwriters, a committee of actual musicians behind the mask. Zita, it implied, was just a pretty face with no real talent, elevated by Stellar's marketing machine. For about 4 hours, it worked. The story gained traction. Fans were confused. The narrative started to shift. Then CEO Park held his own press conference. He brought receipts. Original Nova recordings from 3 years ago, clearly Zita's voice, unmistakable to anyone with ears. Composition credits with her handwriting. Video footage from private studio sessions showing Zita creating the songs that had dominated charts worldwide. 3 years of documented evidence proving beyond any doubt that Zita Coleman was Nova, the real and the only Nova. The story died a public, humiliating death. And Hana's reputation took another devastating hit. A bouquet of orchids arrived at Zita's apartment, stunning and exotic, arranged in a crystal vase that probably cost thousands. The card read, "The world sees you now. They can't look away. DK." Then an invitation. Dinner at one of Seoul's most exclusive restaurants. Private room. Complete discretion guaranteed. Just as friends, his text said. You look like you could use someone to talk to who isn't trying to get something from you. Against her better judgment, Zita went. She found Daniel already seated, looking effortlessly elegant in a dark suit that probably cost more than her first year's salary as a backup dancer. He rose when she entered, pulling out her chair like a gentleman from another era. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I know you have every reason to be suspicious of new people in your life right now." "I do." Zita accepted a glass of wine but didn't drink. "So why am I here?" "Because I think we understand each other." Daniel leaned back in his chair, studying her with those dark, intelligent eyes. "We both know what it's like to be underestimated. To have people look at us and see something less than what we are. Do we? My mother raised me alone in Florida." His voice softened with what seemed like genuine emotion. She worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table, cleaning houses, working retail, singing backup in local clubs whenever she could get the gig. "She died when I was 18, too poor to afford the doctors who might have saved her." He paused. "The world told me I would never be anything because of where I came from, because of what I looked like. I built my empire to prove them wrong." Something resonated in Zita's chest. She knew that story. She'd lived a version of it. "I'm sorry about your mother," she said, and meant it. "I'm sorry about yours." Daniel's gaze was gentle. "CEO Park told me. The accident happened 4 years ago." Zita flinched. She hadn't expected him to know, but then, people like Daniel Kwon made it their business to know things. "Mr. Park said it wasn't an accident, but he didn't give me any details at all." The words were out before she could stop them. She hadn't meant to say anything, but something about Daniel's presence, his understanding, his shared experience of loss, it loosened her tongue. Daniel's expression shifted to concern. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Zita stopped herself. She'd already said too much. "Never mind. I shouldn't." "Zita." Daniel reached across the table, his hand covering hers. His touch was warm, solid, and grounding. "Whatever it is, you can trust me. I have no agenda here except friendship." She looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for deception. She found none. 3 days after the reveal, CEO Park called Zita to his office. "Close the door," he said. His expression was serious. "What I'm about to tell you will change everything." Zita sat, her heart already racing. "Is this about my mother?" "Yes." CEO Park opened a desk drawer and withdrew a thick folder. "I've spent 4 years gathering this evidence. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting until you were powerful enough to use it without being destroyed yourself." "Use it for what?" "Justice." He slid the folder across the desk. "Your mother's death wasn't an accident. The driver who hit her was never found because powerful people made sure she wasn't found." Zita's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Police reports. Witness statements. Bank transfers. A trail of money and influence that led to one inescapable conclusion. The driver was Shin Hana, CEO Park said quietly. She was coming home from a party, drunk out of her mind. She ran a red light and struck your mother's car. Then she fled the scene and let your mother die alone on the pavement. Zita couldn't breathe. Her father covered it up. He paid off the police. He silenced the witnesses. He destroyed the evidence. CEO Park's voice hardened. They've been living their lives like nothing happened while you've been grieving a loss they caused. The folder slipped from Zita's hands. All those years of Hana's abuse took on a new, horrifying dimension. Every cruel word. Every humiliation. Every time Hana had told her to go back where she came from. That woman had killed her mother. And she'd smiled in Zita's face every single day. I've been gathering evidence for years, CEO Park continued. Waiting for the right moment. Your mother was my best friend, Zita. We grew up together in Atlanta. When she died, I swore I would find the truth, and I swore I would help you get justice. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you weren't ready. You didn't have the power to fight them. He met her eyes. You do now. Zita stared at the folder on the floor and at the scattered evidence of Hana's crime. What do I do? That's up to you. But whatever you decide, CEO Park leaned forward. I'll support you completely. CEO Park has secrets about Zita's mother's death. Achene killed Zita's mother and got away with it. I am screaming right now. Type "justice for Grace" in the comments. Zita's revenge just became so much bigger. Keep watching. Chapter 2, Angela Kwon. Zita didn't remember leaving CEO Park's office. One moment she was staring at the police reports, at the bank transfers, at the damning evidence of Hana's crime and her father's cover-up. The next moment she was in her apartment, standing in the middle of her living room with no memory of how she'd gotten there. Pearl found her like that an hour later, frozen, hollow-eyed, the folder still clutched in her white-knuckled hands. Zita? Z, what happened? What? Pearl saw the papers and stopped. What is that? She killed her. Zita's voice was strange and disconnected, like it belonged to someone else. Hana killed my mother. She ran her down like an animal and left her there to die. And then she spent 3 years spitting in my face and calling me worthless. Pearl's expression shifted through shock, horror, then settled on cold fury. Are you sure? Is this evidence solid? CEO Park has been gathering it for 4 years. He has witnesses. Bank records. Phone records. Security footage from a gas station 3 blocks away that shows Hana's car speeding through a red light. Then we go to the police. Right now. Tonight. The police are bought. Zita laughed bitterly. Hana's father owns half the officials in Seoul. The case was closed within weeks. Unidentified hit-and-run driver. Like my mother's life wasn't worth a real investigation. Like she was just another foreigner who didn't matter. She finally looked at Pearl, and her eyes were no longer hollow. They were burning. I'm not going to let her walk away from this. Not when I finally have the power to destroy her. How? I don't know yet. But I'm going to find a way. Pearl was quiet for a moment, then she crossed the room and pulled Zita into a fierce hug. Whatever you need. Whatever it takes. I'm with you. Zita held on to her best friend and let herself feel, for just a moment, the full weight of her grief. For years of unanswered questions. For years of wondering why her mother had to die alone on a dark road in a foreign country. For years of watching Hana prance around like she owned the world while Grace Coleman rotted in a grave she should never have been in. No more. Daniel called that evening. I heard about your meeting with CEO Park. Zita wasn't even surprised that he knew. Men like Daniel always knew things. Did he tell you what we discussed? No, but I can guess. His voice was gentle through the phone. Zita, if you need help, any kind of help, I'm here. I have resources. Connections. People who can make problems disappear. What makes you think I have a problem that needs disappearing? Because I know what it's like to want justice for a mother who was failed by the system. He paused, and something in his voice shifted, became rawer, more real. My mother died because she couldn't afford medicine. Because the man who should have taken care of her threw her away like garbage. I know what it feels like to carry that rage, Zita. Let me help you. Please. Maybe it was weakness. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the seductive relief of having someone offer to share her burden. Okay, she whispered. Okay. They met at his penthouse, a sprawling space that overlooked all of Seoul, furnished with the quiet confidence of extreme wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the glittering cityscape like a kingdom waiting to be conquered. Art that probably cost millions hung on the walls. Everything was elegant, expensive, and somehow cold. Daniel greeted her with a gentle embrace, holding her just long enough to feel comforting without being inappropriate. "Tell me everything," he said. And she did. The whole story poured out of her. The accident, the cover-up, for years of unanswered questions, the evidence CEO Park had gathered. Hana's cruelty taking on a new, monstrous dimension. The burning need for justice that had consumed her since she'd learned the truth. Daniel listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "Hana's father is powerful," he said when she finished. "But he's not untouchable. No one is untouchable if you know where to apply pressure." "How do you know so much about this kind of thing?" Daniel's smile was sad. "I told you, I built my empire from nothing. You don't do that without learning how the game is really played. Without getting your hands dirty. Without understanding exactly how powerful people protect themselves and how to tear those protections down." He leaned forward. "I have a proposal. I'm listening. We make Hana destroy herself. We don't attack her directly, that would make you look vindictive, and she'd play the victim. The media would spin it as jealousy, as revenge, as the bitter backup dancer going after the established star. Instead, we give her opportunities to show the world who she really is. She's already spiraling. A few carefully placed provocations, and she'll do something unforgivable in public. And then, when her reputation is completely gone, when even her fans have turned against her, you release the evidence about your mother. The public will already hate her. They'll be primed to believe the worst. And Hana's father won't be able to protect her because protecting her will mean admitting his own crimes." Zita considered this. It was strategic, cold, and calculated. It was exactly what she needed. "There's something else," Daniel continued. "Part of Hana's public defense is her relationship with Jae-sun. As long as people see her as his girlfriend, as long as she can paint herself as the victim of your supposed obsession with him, she has a shield. We need to take that away." "How?" Daniel's eyes met hers, warm and serious. "By showing the world that you've moved on to something better." Zita understood instantly. "You want us to pretend to date. It serves multiple purposes. It protects you from Jae-sun's attempts to reconcile, and he will try. Zita, men like him always do once they realize what they've lost. It makes Hana jealous and reckless, because she can't stand anyone having something she doesn't. And it positions you as someone who has risen above the drama, who has found happiness despite everything they did to you." He held up a hand before she could object. "This would be strictly strategic. I have no intention of taking advantage of your vulnerability. When this is over, we can go our separate ways as friends. And what do you get out of it? The satisfaction of helping you win." Daniel's smile didn't quite reach his eyes, but Zita was too exhausted to notice. "And honestly, I've had my own dealings with Hana's family. Let's just say I wouldn't mind watching them fall." Zita thought about Jae-sun seeing photos of her with another man. She thought about Hana's face when she realized Zita had stolen her spotlight completely. She thought about justice, the kind that couldn't be bought or buried. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." Daniel smiled. Their first date was a masterpiece of strategic planning. A rooftop restaurant with a view of the Seoul Tower, known for its romantic ambience and its discreet but not too discreet celebrity sightings. The kind of place where the rich and famous went when they wanted to be seen without looking like they wanted to be seen. They arrived separately to avoid suspicion, then happened to leave together, Daniel's hand hovering protectively at the small of her back. The paparazzi, tipped off by one of Daniel's people, captured everything, every smile, every whispered word, every moment that could be interpreted as intimacy. By morning, the photos were everywhere. Novice new king? Zita Coleman spotted with billionaire Daniel Kwon. From secret lover to public princess, Zita Coleman living her best life. Move over, K-pop idols. Novice got a real man now. Zita Coleman upgrades. New boyfriend is richer and more handsome than Jae-sun. The contrast to Zita's relationship with Jae-sun was stark and intentional. No hiding. No secret elevators. Number 2 a.m. visits through service entrances. Just two beautiful, powerful people enjoying each other's company in broad daylight, unashamed and unafraid. The message was clear. This is what I deserved all along. Daniel seems so perfect, right? Smiling face with hearts, too perfect. Eyes, do you trust him? Something feels off to me. Comment your theories below. And don't forget to like if you're obsessed with this story. Zita's Weibo campaign began the next day. She posted strategically, timing each photo for maximum impact, not randomly, but calculated to the minute to coincide with moments when she knew Jae-sun would be watching, unable to escape. Post 1, published during Eclipse's music show performance, when Jae-sun was on stage and his phone was backstage, waiting for him. A photo of Daniel surprising her at her studio with a bouquet of roses, his smile wide and genuine, her expression one of delighted surprise. Caption: someone who brings me flowers in daylight, not just darkness. Post 2, published during a Jae-sun interview, when she knew he'd see the notification on his phone mid-sentence. Daniel with his arm around her at a charity event, both of them dressed to kill, looking like they belonged together. Caption: he asked to meet my fans. Said anyone I love, he wants to love too. Post 3, published at exactly 8 p.m., the time she and Jae-sun used to meet, their sacred hour. A candlelit dinner, Daniel gazing at her adoringly across the table, her hand reaching for his. Caption: this is what being chosen looks like. No hiding. No shame. No fear. Post 4, published on the anniversary of her mother's death, when she knew Jae-sun would remember and feel guilty for not being there. Daniel holding her hand at her mother's memorial, his expression solemn and supportive, her face peaceful despite the grief. Caption: he came with me to visit my mother today. No one asked him to. He just knew I needed him. This is love. Each post was a carefully aimed missile, designed to explode in Jae-sun's heart at the exact moment he was most vulnerable. And based on the timing published during his public appearances, during moments he couldn't escape to process privately, she knew exactly when the shrapnel would hit. Jae-sun saw every post. He couldn't stop himself from looking, even though each photo felt like a knife sliding between his ribs. Daniel holding her hand. Daniel making her laugh. Daniel looking at her the way Jae-sun used to look at her in private when no one else could see. Daniel standing beside her at her mother's memorial, being the man Jae-sun should have been. Derek found him at 3 a.m., drunk and scrolling, the blue light of his phone the only illumination in the dark apartment. Empty bottles littered the coffee table. Jae-sun hadn't showered in days. This is destroying you. I deserve it. Jae-sun didn't look up from his phone. She posted the dinner photo at exactly 8 p.m. That was our time. The time I used to sneak her into the penthouse through the service elevator. The time we'd order takeout and watch bad movies and pretend the rest of the world didn't exist. His voice cracked. She remembers. She's doing this on purpose. Can you blame her? No. Jae-sun finally looked at his friend, and his eyes were red with more than alcohol. That's the worst part. I can't blame her for any of it. I did this. I destroyed what we had. And now I have to watch her build something beautiful with someone else. He looked back at his phone, the photo of Daniel and Zita at her mother's memorial. That should have been me, he whispered. While Zita's public campaign unfolded, Hana was planning her own counterattack. She'd lost the public relations battle, that much was clear. But she hadn't lost everything. She still had her father's money, his connections, his willingness to do whatever it took to protect his precious daughter. And she still had weapons that Zita didn't know about. Hana decided to target Daniel directly. If she couldn't beat Zita publicly, she could at least steal her new man. And more importantly, she could discover exactly what Daniel was hiding, because everyone was hiding something, and Hana had learned long ago that secrets were the most valuable currency of all. She arranged a chance encounter at an exclusive club, timing her arrival for when she knew Daniel would be present. She wore her most devastating dress, red, tight, cut low enough to be scandalous, but expensive enough to be classy. The kind of dress that made men stupid. Daniel was alone at the bar when she approached, her smile bright and predatory. "Mr. Kwon." What a pleasant surprise. She slid onto the stool beside him, close enough that her perfume wrapped around them both. "I've been hoping we might run into each other." Daniel turned to look at her, and for a moment, his expression was unreadable. Then he smiled. "Miss Shin, I've heard so much about you. All good things, I hope." She laughed, touching his arm lightly. The way she'd touched 1,000 men before, the gesture that always worked. "Interesting things." His smile didn't waver. "You have quite a reputation." "So do you." Hana leaned closer, letting him see down her dress, letting her lips brush close to his ear. "Self-made billionaire. CEO of the fastest-growing entertainment company in Asia. And now you're dating the most talked-about woman in the world." She traced a finger along the rim of her glass. "That must be exciting." "It has its moments. I imagine it's also complicated. Zita has so much baggage. So much drama." Hana's eyes widened with false sympathy. "It must be exhausting, dealing with all her problems." "I don't find it exhausting at all." "Really?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you've attached yourself to a sinking ship." Hana's smile sharpened. Her career as Nova might be impressive, but she's made powerful enemies. Enemies who could make life very difficult for anyone associated with her. Daniel set down his drink. When he turned to face her fully, something in his expression had changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by something cold and predatory, something that made Hana's instincts scream at her to run. "Let me tell you what I see, Hana." She blinked at the use of her name without honorifics. "I see a woman who peaked at 20 and has been desperately clawing to stay relevant ever since. I see a bully who spent 3 years tormenting someone she should have been terrified of. And I see," he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that made her blood freeze, "a murderer who thought she got away with it." Hana's blood turned to ice. "I don't know what you're." "For years ago. A dark road. A woman you left to die in the street like roadkill." Daniel's eyes bore into hers, and there was no warmth left in them, only cold, calculated fury. "Did you even remember her face when you went home that night? Or were you too drunk to care?" Hana's hand shook so badly she knocked over her glass. Alcohol splashed across the bar, but neither of them looked at it. "How do you? That's impossible, my father made sure." "Your father is not as powerful as he thinks he is." Daniel straightened, adjusting his cuffs casually, as if they'd been discussing the weather. "And neither are you." He signaled for the bartender, paid his tab, and turned to leave. "Daniel, wait." Hana grabbed his arm, her voice desperate. "What do you want? Money? I can pay whatever you want." "I don't want your money." He looked down at her hand on his arm until she released it. "I want you to understand something, Hana. You're not the predator in this situation. You never were." He walked away without looking back. Hana sat frozen at the bar, her mind racing, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. He knew. Daniel Kwon knew everything. And the look in his eyes had told her something even worse. He was going to enjoy destroying her. She called her father immediately, her voice shaking. "He knows, Daddy. Daniel Kwon knows about the accident. About everything." "That's impossible." But her father's voice had that strange quality again, not surprised, but afraid. "I buried that evidence years ago. I paid off everyone who could possibly. Well, someone found it. And now he's going to use it against me." Hana was close to hysteria. "You have to do something." A long pause. "What exactly did he say?" Hana recounted the conversation, her voice growing more frantic with each word. When she finished, her father was quiet for a long moment. "Stay away from Daniel Kwon," he said finally. "Don't approach him. Don't contact him. Don't even look at him. But do as I say, Hana." His voice had gone cold. "Daniel Kwon is more dangerous than you know. More dangerous than you could possibly understand." "What does that mean? What are you not telling me?" But her father had already hung up. The fan event was packed. 10,000 people crammed into a convention center, all of them wearing Nova merchandise, waving light sticks, screaming their devotion at the woman on stage. The energy was electric, the love overwhelming, the noise so loud it vibrated in Zita's chest. She stood at the microphone, basking in the love. She'd earned this. Every sleepless night, every hidden tear, every moment of doubt, it had all led here. And in the front row, impossible to miss, sat Jae-sun. The company had insisted he attend, something about showing industry unity and moving past the scandal. He'd been given a choice: show up and smile, or face breach of contract lawsuits that would follow him for years. So here he was, watching the woman he loved receive the adoration he'd once denied her. "I have an announcement to make," Zita said, and the crowd hushed. "About my personal life." Jae-sun's heart stopped. "For 2 years, I hid my love because I was told the world wouldn't accept it. I was told I should be ashamed of who I wanted. I was told that loving someone openly would destroy everything I'd worked for." She paused, and her eyes found his in the crowd. "I believed them. I let myself be someone's secret, someone's shame, someone's convenient lie." The crowd murmured, uncertain. "I was wrong." Zita's voice strengthened. "The world was ready to love me for exactly who I am. The person I loved wasn't." 10,000 people turned to stare at Jae-sun. He could feel their eyes on him, some confused, some angry, some pitying. The weight of their judgment pressed down on him like a physical force. "But I've learned something important." Zita smiled, and it was radiant. "Never dim your light for someone who's afraid of your shine. Never be someone's secret when you deserve to be their whole world. Today, I'm proud to announce that I'm in a relationship with someone who chooses me completely. Someone who isn't afraid to love me in public." She extended her hand toward the wings of the stage. "Daniel Kwon." Daniel walked out, tall and handsome and confident, his brown skin glowing under the lights. He took Zita's hand, lifted it to his lips, and kissed her knuckles while 10,000 people screamed. Then he pulled her close and kissed her properly, right there on stage, in front of the cameras and the fans and the man in the front row whose heart was visibly shattering. Zita let herself sink into the kiss for a long moment. Then she opened her eyes and looked directly at Jae-sun. "This could have been you," her gaze said. "This should have been you." Jae-sun couldn't breathe. After the event, he cornered Daniel in a private hallway. "Stay away from her." Daniel turned, not looking remotely surprised to see him. "Excuse me. I know what you're doing. You're using her. Taking advantage of her pain to what?" Daniel's expression was amused. "To treat her like she deserves? To love her in public instead of hiding her like a shameful secret." He stepped closer, and something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "That's what you did, isn't it? Kept her in the shadows for 2 years because you were afraid of what people would think. Because your precious image mattered more than her heart. You don't know anything about our relationship. I know you destroyed her on national television. I know you called her a sassying and a stalker. I know you held Hana's hand while Zita watched her whole world collapse." Daniel's smile was cold. "What exactly do you think gives you the right to warn me about anything?" Jae-sun's hands clenched into fists. "I made a mistake. The worst mistake of my life. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stand by and watch someone else hurt her." "Someone else?" Daniel laughed. "You think I'm going to hurt her? Take a look in the mirror, Jae-sun. I'm not the villain of this story. You are." He turned to leave, then paused, looking back over his shoulder. "Oh, and one more thing." His voice dropped to a whisper that only Jae-sun could hear. "Ask your father about Angela Kwon. Ask him what he did 30 years ago. Then maybe you'll understand why you can't protect Zita from me." He walked away, leaving Jae-sun frozen in the hallway. Angela Kwon. The name meant nothing to him. But the way Daniel had said it, like a promise and a threat combined, told him everything about how much danger Zita was really in. Wait. Who is Angela Kwon? What does Jae-sun's father have to do with Daniel? I am not okay right now. Type plot twist if your mind is blown. Like this video if you didn't see that coming. We're not done yet. The biggest reveal is still coming. Chapter 3, Season Finale. Jae-sun went to his father's house that same night. Kang Min-soo was not a warm man. He'd built his business empire on cold calculation and ruthless efficiency, and he'd raised his son to be the same. Their relationship was more like a business partnership than a family bond: mutual benefit, mutual respect, minimal emotional investment. Jae-sun. His father looked surprised to see him. I thought you were at that fan event. I was. Jae-sun stepped inside without being invited. I need to ask you something. It's late. Who is Angela Kwon? His father's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. A flash of something that looked almost like fear. Where did you hear that name? Daniel Kwon. The man who's dating Zita. Jae-sun watched his father's face carefully. He told me to ask you about Angela Kwon. He said it happened 30 years ago. A long silence stretched between them. Sit down, his father said finally. Jae-sun sat. His father poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed one to his son, and drained his own in a single swallow. 30 years ago, he began, his voice heavy. I was young. Ambitious. Already successful, but not satisfied. I traveled to America for business, and I met a woman. Angela Kwon. Angela Thompson then. She was a singer. Beautiful. Talented. Different from anyone I'd ever known. Warm where Korean women were reserved, open where they were guarded. She had this voice. His father's eyes went distant. I was captivated by her. We had an affair. Brief but intense. Jae-sun's stomach clenched. He already knew where this was going. She became pregnant. His father's voice was flat now, emotionless. She told me she wanted to keep the child. She wanted us to be together. Wanted me to choose her. What did you do? What I had to do. His father met his eyes. I was already engaged to your mother. The marriage was arranged, good for business, good for the family. I couldn't throw that away for a woman I barely knew. For a child, that would have been an embarrassment. A scandal. So I gave Angela money. Enough to live comfortably, I thought. And I told her to never contact me again. Jae-sun felt sick. You abandoned her. You abandoned your own child. I provided for them. You threw them away. Jae-sun stood, his chair scraping back. What happened to them? What happened to this woman and her child? His father was quiet for a long moment. Angela died 18 years ago. She'd been sick for years, some kind of cancer, I heard. She couldn't afford proper treatment. The money I'd given her had run out long before. He paused. The child, the son. I don't know what happened to him. I never wanted to know. I do. Jae-sun's voice was shaking with rage. He became Daniel Kwon. He built a billion-dollar empire from nothing. And now he's dating the woman I love, the woman you told me to deny publicly, and I'm pretty sure he's planning to destroy our entire family. His father's face went pale. Daniel Kwon he's your son. My half-brother. Jae-sun laughed bitterly. Congratulations, father. Your sins have come home to roost. He walked out without another word, leaving his father staring at nothing. Armed with this knowledge, Jae-sun began to investigate Daniel more thoroughly. What he found terrified him. Daniel Kwon hadn't just built a successful company. He'd systematically acquired businesses connected to the Kang family. Silent investments. Strategic partnerships. A web of financial connections that, if leveraged correctly, could bring their entire empire crashing down. He'd bought suppliers they depended on. He'd invested in competitors they'd underestimated. He'd acquired the debt of companies they did business with. Every move was perfectly legal and perfectly calculated. It all led toward a single goal: the complete destruction of the family that had abandoned his mother. He'd been planning this for years. And Zita was just a piece on his chessboard. A weapon to be used against the family that had abandoned his mother. A way to get close to Jae-sun, to twist the knife, to make him watch as Daniel took everything he loved. Jae-sun tried to warn her. He sent messages, letters, tried to call. Everything was blocked or returned or ignored. Zita had made it clear she wanted nothing to do with him, and her assistant had been given strict instructions to refuse any communication from Kang Jae-sun. But he couldn't give up. Not when he knew what Daniel really was. Meanwhile, Hana launched her final, desperate scheme. She'd managed to dig up information about Daniel's mother, not enough to expose his true identity, but enough to plant doubt. Through anonymous sources, she leaked a story. Nova's billionaire boyfriend. Is it all fake? Sources say Daniel Kwon has hidden agenda. The story claimed that Daniel was using Zita for publicity, that their relationship was manufactured, that he had mysterious business connections that suggested ulterior motives. For a few days, it worked. Fans were confused. The narrative shifted. Zita found herself defending a relationship she wasn't even sure she wanted. And then Zita found the evidence that changed everything. She was alone in Daniel's penthouse, waiting for him to return from a meeting. She wasn't snooping, not intentionally, but a folder had been left open on his desk. A folder with her name on it. Inside, she found documents that made her blood run cold. Files on Jae-sun's family business. Strategic acquisition plans. A timeline that showed Daniel had started targeting the Kang family years before he'd ever met Zita. Financial projections for their destruction. Notes on Jae-sun's weaknesses, his vulnerabilities, the things that could be used to hurt him most. And worst of all, transcripts of conversations with Hana. Daniel had been feeding Hana information. Small details, strategically timed, designed to keep her making mistakes. He'd been playing both sides, helping Zita's revenge while simultaneously manipulating Hana's desperation, keeping them at each other's throats while he maneuvered behind the scenes. He wasn't helping Zita because he cared about her. He was using her as a weapon against the Kang family. Using her the same way Jae-sun had used her. Using her the same way everyone always used her. Daniel walked in to find Zita standing by his desk, the folder in her hands. His expression flickered surprise, then calculation, then something like resignation. "I was going to tell you." "When?" Zita's voice cracked. "After you've finished destroying Jae-sun? After you'd used me up and thrown me away like everyone else." "It's not like that." "Then what is it like? Explain to me why you have files on Jae-sun's father. Explain why you've been talking to Hana behind my back. Explain why your whole company is set up to destroy the Kang family." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then the mask dropped. The warmth drained from his eyes, replaced by something cold and hard and ancient in its fury. "You want to know the truth? Fine." He stepped closer. "My mother's name was Angela Kwon. She was beautiful, talented. She came to Korea 30 years ago with dreams of being a singer, and she met a man who promised her the world." Zita stepped back, unsettled by the change in him. He got her pregnant and threw her away like garbage. Gave her money and told her to disappear. She raised me alone in poverty, working herself to death, and when she got sick, his voice cracked, the first genuine emotion she'd heard from him. When she got sick, she couldn't afford doctors. She died in a charity hospital while the man who abandoned her lived in a mansion with his perfect Korean wife and his perfect Korean son. "Who?" Zita whispered, though she already knew. "Kang Min-soo, Jae-sun's father." Daniel's smile was terrible. "I'm Jae-sun's brother. His half-brother. The one his family pretended didn't exist. The one they left to rot while they built their empire on my mother's broken heart." Zita felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "I've spent 20 years building my company. Every dollar, every connection, every strategic move, all of it designed to destroy them. To take everything they have and make them feel what my mother felt when she died alone, calling out for a man who had already forgotten her name. And me?" Zita's voice was barely audible. "Where do I fit in?" Daniel's expression softened slightly, but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. "I needed someone to get close to Jae-sun. To make him suffer. When I learned about your history, about what he did to you," he shrugged. "You were perfect for my revenge." Zita slapped him. The crack echoed through the penthouse. Daniel's head snapped to the side, a red mark blooming on his cheek. When he looked back at her, there was almost respect in his eyes. "I deserved that. You deserve worse." Zita's voice shook with fury. "I thought you understood. I thought we were the same, outsiders fighting against a system that wanted to crush us. But you're just like everyone else, using people and manipulating them. Everything I told you about my mother was true. And everything you told me about caring for me was a lie." Tears streamed down her face. "I trusted you. I let you into my life when I swore I would never let anyone close again. And the whole time, you were just playing a game." "Zita, don't." She held up a hand. Don't say my name like you have the right to. Don't pretend we have something real. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Where are you going? To fix this. She looked back at him one final time. You want to destroy Jae-sun's family? Fine. They probably deserve it. But you're not going to use me to do it. And you're not going to win. You can't stop what I've started. Watch me. She slammed the door behind her. Daniel was the villain all along. He used Zita to destroy Jae-sun. And now Zita has to choose, expose Daniel's secrets or let them destroy each other. Type, I didn't see that coming in the comments. We're almost at the end. Zita went straight to Jae-sun. It was the last place she wanted to go. The thought of seeing him still made her chest ache with a pain that hadn't faded despite everything. But he was the only one who could help her stop Daniel, and he deserved to know the truth about the brother he'd never known he had. She found him at his apartment, looking worse than she'd ever seen him. He wore clothes he'd clearly slept in for days. Zita? He stared at her like she was a ghost. How did you? I thought you. We need to talk. She pushed past him into the apartment. About Daniel Kwon. The next hour was brutal. She told him everything: the files, the manipulation, Daniel's true identity, the years-long plan to destroy the Kang family. She watched Jae-sun's face cycle through shock, denial, anger, and finally a devastation that mirrored her own. I knew, he said quietly when she finished. I found out about my father and Angela Kwon yesterday. I've been trying to warn you, but you wouldn't. I know. I'm sorry. I was so angry at you that I wouldn't listen to anything you had to say. You had every right to be angry. They sat in silence for a moment, two people who had hurt each other deeply, united now by a common enemy. What do we do? Zita asked. Jae-sun was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady with resolve. I will expose him. I will expose everything: my father's affair, Daniel's true identity, all of it. If I get ahead of the story, Daniel loses his leverage. That will destroy your family's reputation. My family's reputation deserves to be destroyed. Jae-sun looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, she saw the man she'd fallen in love with, the one who had held her in the darkness and promised to be brave. My father abandoned a woman and child. He let them suffer while we lived in luxury. That's not a legacy worth protecting. Jae-sun. And there's something else. He took a deep breath. I'm going to tell the truth about us. About everything. The relationship, the lies at the press conference, all of it. Zita's heart stopped. You can't. Your career. My career means nothing if I built it on your destruction. He met her eyes. I should have said this months ago, Zita. I should have stood beside you at that press conference and told the world I loved you. I was a coward. I let them convince me that my image was more important than your heart. It's too late now. Maybe. But I can still do the right thing. He reached out, hesitantly, and took her hand. Even if you never forgive me, even if we never get back what we had, I can at least give you the truth. Zita looked at their intertwined hands. She remembered all the times she'd held this hand in secret, in his penthouse, in hidden corners, in stolen moments that always felt like they were running out of time. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The next morning, Jae-sun called a press conference. No one knew what to expect. Stellar Entertainment was blindsided. His managers were panicking. Even the other Eclipse members didn't know what he was about to do. The room was packed with journalists, cameras flashing, recorders thrust forward. Jae-sun stood at the podium alone. I'm here to tell the truth, he began. About myself, my family, and the woman I love. The room went silent. 3 weeks ago, I stood at a podium like this one and lied. I called Zita Coleman a Seoul. I denied our relationship. I let my company destroy her reputation to protect my image. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. I was a coward. I was wrong. And I am deeply, profoundly sorry. The cameras flashed faster. The truth is, I was in a relationship with Zita Coleman for 2 years. I loved her, I still love her more than I've ever loved anyone. And when our relationship was threatened, I chose my career over her. I chose fear over love. I chose wrong. Murmurs rippled through the room. But that's not the only secret my family has been keeping. He looked directly into the cameras. 30 years ago, my father had an affair with an American woman named Angela Kwon. She became pregnant with his child. He abandoned her, gave her money, and told her to disappear. She raised that child alone, in poverty, and she died because she couldn't afford medical care. The murmurs became gasps. That child grew up to become Daniel Kwon, the man you've seen with Zita Coleman in recent weeks. The man who built an empire specifically to destroy my family. The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction, but Jae-sun held up a hand. Daniel Kwon is my half-brother. He has every right to hate us. My father's actions were unforgivable. And while I don't condone Daniel's methods, using innocent people like Zita in his schemes, I understand his anger. He paused, gathering himself. I'm not here to defend my family. I'm here to take responsibility for my own choices. I lied about Zita Coleman. I let her be called a stalker and a sassying. I held another woman's hand on stage while the real love of my life watched me betray her. His voice cracked. I can't undo what I did. I can't take back the pain I caused. But I can tell the truth now. And I can spend the rest of my life trying to be the man she deserved all along. He looked directly into one camera, the one he knew she'd be watching. Zita, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved to be chosen in public without fear. I should have been brave enough to give you that. He stepped back from the podium. That's all I have to say. He walked off stage while the room exploded behind him. Within hours, everything changed. Daniel Kwon's carefully constructed revenge fell apart. With the truth already public, he had no leverage. His mysterious schemes were exposed. His manipulation of both Zita and Hana came to light. He held his own press conference, trying to control the narrative, but the damage was done. The public saw him not as a wronged son seeking justice, but as a manipulator who had used innocent people as weapons. His company survived, but his reputation was shattered. Hana's crimes were exposed in full, not just the bullying, but the hit and run that had killed Zita's mother. Evidence that CEO Park had gathered for years was turned over to prosecutors who weren't in her father's pocket. She was arrested at her penthouse, cameras capturing every moment as she was led away in handcuffs. Her father was arrested at his office the same day. The cover-up was dismantled piece by piece. Hana's last words to the press as she was led away, I didn't mean to. I didn't know she would die. But she had known. And she had walked away anyway. Justice, at last. Jae-sun's career was over, at least in its current form. Stellar terminated his contract. Eclipse announced his departure. The idol machine that had built him up now spat him out. But something unexpected happened. Fans rallied. Not all of them, but enough. They saw his confession not as weakness, but as courage. They forgave him for his lies because he'd been willing to sacrifice everything to tell the truth. He wasn't a perfect idol anymore. He was just a man who had made terrible mistakes and was trying to make them right. And somehow, that was enough for the people who mattered. 6 months later, Zita stood at the window of her new apartment, looking out at the Seoul skyline. So much had changed since that night at the concert. So much had been destroyed and rebuilt. Nova was bigger than ever. The scandal had only increased her fame, the backup dancer who became a queen, who survived betrayal and came out stronger. Her album sales were through the roof. Her concert tours sold out in minutes. But success feels different now. She heard a knock at the door. She opened it to find Jae-sun standing there, looking nervous. He was different too. He wore simpler clothes and less polished hair. He'd been working at a children's music school in Busan for the past 3 months, teaching kids who would never know or care that he'd once been Korea's biggest idol. Hi, he said. Hi. An awkward silence. Can I come in? She stepped aside. They sat on opposite ends of her couch, the space between them feeling like miles. I wasn't sure you'd see me, he said. I wasn't sure I would either. Another silence. I read your interview, she said finally. The one where you talked about teaching. Yeah. He smiled slightly. Turns out I actually like working with kids. They don't care about scandals or image. They just want to learn music. That sounds nice. It is. He looked at her. It's the first time in years I've felt like myself. The real me, not the version everyone expected. Zita understood that feeling more than she could say. I've been thinking, she said carefully, about everything that happened. About us. Zita, you don't have to. Let me finish. She took a breath. What you did at that press conference, telling the truth, exposing your family, sacrificing your career, that took courage. Real courage. The kind I always hoped you had but never got to see. I should have shown it sooner. Yes, you should have. She met his eyes. But you showed it eventually. And that matters. He leaned forward slightly, hope flickering in his expression. What are you saying? I'm saying. She hesitated. I'm not ready to forgive you. Not completely. What you did hurt me in ways I'm still processing. But I'm also tired of being angry. Tired of letting the past poison everything. So where does that leave us? Zita thought about the past 6 months. The loneliness. The success that felt hollow. The nights she'd caught herself reaching for her phone to text him before remembering they were strangers now. I don't know, she admitted. But I think I'd like to find out. Jae-sun's breath caught. Really? Slowly. Carefully. No promises, no expectations. Just seeing if there's anything left worth saving. He nodded, eyes bright. I can do that. We can take things slow. Good. She almost smiled. Because I'm not the same woman you fell in love with. I'm stronger now. Harder, in some ways. I won't let anyone hide me again. I wouldn't want you to. He reached out slowly and took her hand. She let him. I fell in love with the woman who was already there, the one who was powerful and brilliant and didn't need anyone's validation to know her own worth. I was just too blind to see it. Now I see you. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I see everything. And I'm not afraid anymore. They sat like that for a long moment, hands intertwined, the silence no longer awkward but comfortable. There's something else I need to tell you, Zita said quietly. What? She took a deep breath. The night before the photos leaked. Our last night together. I was going to tell you something important. About Nova? About Nova. She paused. And about. I was pregnant. Jae-sun stopped breathing. What? I found out 2 days before the scandal. I was so happy. So scared. I was going to tell you that night, tell you about Nova, about the baby, about everything. I wanted us to face it together. Jae-sun's face had gone white. What happened? The stress of everything that happened, the scandal, the threats, watching you deny me on television, her voice cracked. I lost the baby. 3 weeks later. I never told anyone. The sound that escaped Jae-sun was barely human. I'm so sorry, he whispered. God, Zita, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I would have. I know you didn't know. Tears streamed down her face now. That's not why I'm telling you. I'm telling you because. She took a shaky breath. Because I'm pregnant again. Silence. Remember 3 months ago? The night of my album release party. I think what happened that night between us led to another growing seed in my stomach. You mean you are pregnant? I'm keeping it. I'm not asking for permission. I can do this alone if I have to. But I thought you should know. Jae-sun fell to his knees in front of her, his hands cupping her face, his eyes searching hers. You won't have to do it alone, he said fiercely. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever you need, whatever it takes, I'm here. It won't be easy. The public, the media. I don't care about any of that. He pressed his forehead to hers. I only care about you. About us. About our baby. The words broke something loose in Zita's chest. All the walls she'd built, all the armor she'd worn, it cracked, and underneath was something raw and tender and desperate to be loved. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too. He kissed her forehead. But we can be scared together. That's what I should have offered you from the beginning. Not safety, not certainty, but together, no matter what comes. Zita closed her eyes, letting herself lean into him for the first time in months. Together, she whispered. I can try that. He held her while she cried. She held him while he cried too. He kissed her lips. They poured all their days of separation into that kiss. Months later, Zita lay exhausted but radiant inside a hospital in Seoul, her hair damp with sweat, her eyes brighter than they'd been in years. In her arms, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, was a baby girl. Jae-sun sat beside the bed, one hand stroking Zita's hair, the other gently touching his daughter's tiny fingers. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She's ours."
Perfect.
Zita looked up at him, and her smile held no reservations, no guards, no fear.
Perfect.
"Our second chance. What should we name her?"
You both.
Zita looked down at the baby, at her brown skin, a shade between her mother's and father's, at the wisps of dark curly hair, at the tiny nose that already looked like Jae-sun's. "Grace," she said softly. "After my mother." Jae-sun's eyes filled with tears. "Grace. It's beautiful." "Grace Coleman Kong," Zita corrected gently. "She carries both our names. Both our histories. Both our futures. Thank you for giving me another chance," Jae-sun said and kissed her lips gently. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughter sleep. Outside the window, Seoul glittered in the morning sun, the same city that had tried to break them, that had watched them fall and rise and fall again. But they'd survived. They'd found their way back to each other through the wreckage. It hadn't been easy. The past year had been full of difficult conversations, therapy sessions, moments when Zita wondered if she'd made a mistake. Jae-sun had to earn her trust back piece by piece, proving through actions rather than words that he was different now. Most days, she woke up grateful. For the man beside her, for the life growing between them, for the second chance neither of them had expected. "You know," Jae-sun said quietly, "I used to think my life was over when I left the industry. All those years of training, of sacrifice, of building an image, gone in a single press conference. Do you regret it?" "Not for a second." He looked at her, and his eyes held nothing but love. "I thought being an idol was my dream. Turns out my dream was just this. Being with someone who knows all of me, the good and the bad, and chooses to stay anyway." "That's not a dream," Zita said. "That's just love. Same thing when you find the right person." She leaned her head against his shoulder, their daughter sleeping peacefully between them. "I love you," she said. It still felt new, saying it out loud. They'd spent so long hiding that being open still felt revolutionary. "I love you too." He kissed the top of her head. "Today, tomorrow, and every day after that. No more hiding. No more fear. No more secrets? No more secrets." Baby Grace stirred in her sleep, making a soft sound that made both her parents' hearts melt. "She's going to have an interesting life," Jae-sun mused. Daughter of the world's biggest pop star and a disgraced former idol turned music teacher. "She's going to have a loved life," Zita corrected. "That's what matters." "You're right. That's what matters. My father has never cared about me while growing up. After my mother died, I just had to survive on my own. So sorry about that," Zita said to Jae-sun, who smiled at her. They watched the sunrise paint Seoul in shades of gold and pink, their daughter safe in their arms, their future uncertain but full of possibility. "We made it," she whispered. Jae-sun pulled her closer. "We made it." And for the first time in her life, Zita Coleman felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Not because someone else had put her there, because she had chosen it for herself. They had a grand wedding which was the talk of the whole city and beyond. The end. And that's the end. I am crying writing this. If this story touched your heart, please do these things. Smash that like button, let's get this to 10K likes. Comment, Baby Grace, if you're crying right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories. Share this with someone who needs a beautiful love story. Zita went from backup dancer to queen. From hidden to seen. From broken to whole. Her story taught me that no matter how dark it gets, you can always rise again. What story should I tell next? Drop your ideas below. Thank you for going on this journey with me. I love you all. Afro-Korean Diaries.
Please subscribe, share, and comment on this video.